The champagne glass shattered in Dante Moretti's hand. Nobody noticed at first. The annual St. Christopher Charity Gala was in full swing, with 300 of the city's most powerful people filling the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead like frozen fireworks. An orchestra played soft music in the corner. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video to your loved ones. Wealthy men in expensive suits laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, while women in designer dresses compared jewelry that cost more than most people's houses. Dante stood near the marble pillars at the edge of the ballroom, blood dripping from his palm where the glass had cut him. But he didn't feel the pain. He couldn't feel anything except the shock that had turned his entire body to stone. Because there, walking through the entrance with her head held high, was Amara. His Amara. Except she wasn't his anymore, was she? He'd made sure of that 6 months ago when he'd signed the divorce papers and watched her walk out of his life forever. But this woman who glided into the ballroom didn't look like the sad, broken person who'd left his mansion. That Amara was quiet, always making herself smaller, her eyes red from crying. That Amara wore simple clothes and barely spoke above a whisper in his presence. This Amara looked like a queen. She wore a flowing emerald green dress that hugged her body in all the right places. Her dark hair, which she used to tie back in a simple ponytail, now fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Diamond earrings caught the light as she moved. Her skin seemed to glow with a warmth that Dante had forgotten she possessed. But none of that was what made Dante's world tilt sideways. It was the gentle swell of her belly beneath that emerald dress, the unmistakable curve that told everyone in the room exactly what they needed to know. Amara was pregnant. Very pregnant. Dante's mind raced with quick math. 6 months since the divorce. If she was showing that much, she had to be at least 5 or 6 months along, which meant... His thoughts crashed to a halt as a man stepped into view beside Amara, placing his hand on the small of her back at a gesture so possessive, so intimate, that Dante felt rage flood through his veins like hot poison. Lorenzo Capelli. Of all the people in the world, it had to be him. Lorenzo was everything Dante hated. The man ran the East Side operations, controlling the docks and half the import business that came through the city. For 10 years they'd been enemies, always fighting over territory, over deals, over power. Lorenzo was smooth where Dante was rough. He smiled easily and talked like a politician, making people trust him before he stabbed them in the back. And now he stood there with Dante's ex-wife, looking like he'd won the greatest prize in the world. "Boss, your hand." Felix appeared at Dante's side, his bodyguard's voice cutting through the fog in his brain. Felix pressed a white napkin against Dante's bleeding palm, but his eyes followed Dante's gaze across the room. Oh no. "How long have you known?" Dante's voice came out rough like gravel. "I didn't, I swear, boss. We lost track of her after she left. She disappeared completely." Felix's own shock seemed genuine. Across the ballroom, people were starting to notice. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Everyone in this room knew who Dante Moretti was. They knew he'd recently divorced his wife after 7 years of marriage, and now here she was, pregnant and glowing on the arm of his biggest rival. The gossip would be everywhere by morning. Dante watched as Lorenzo leaned down to whisper something in Amara's ear. She smiled, actually smiled at whatever he said. When was the last time Dante had made her smile like that? He couldn't remember. Then it happened. Amara's eyes swept across the room and landed on him. For a moment, time stopped. The music faded away. The people disappeared. It was just the two of them staring at each other across a ballroom that suddenly felt like an ocean. Dante expected to see pain in her eyes, or anger, or maybe tears. Those were the expressions he remembered from their last months together, when everything between them had turned cold and broken. But Amara looked at him with something much worse than anger. She looked at him with nothing at all. Her eyes were calm, almost peaceful. She didn't look away quickly like she used to when he caught her staring. She didn't flinch or drop her gaze to the floor. She simply looked at him the same way she might look at a stranger on the street, with polite indifference, and then she looked away, turning her attention back to Lorenzo. That empty look hurt more than any slap could have. "Dante Moretti, there you are!" A loud voice boomed beside him. Richard Westbrook, a real estate developer, clapped him on the shoulder. "Quite the evening, isn't it? Did you see Lorenzo Capelli just walked in with his lady? Apparently they're engaged. Baby on the way too, from what I hear. Never thought that devil would settle down. But love does strange things to a man, doesn't it?" Engaged. The word hit Dante like a bullet to the chest. "If you'll excuse me," Dante said, pulling away from Richard's grip. He headed toward the side exit, needing air, needing space, needing to be anywhere but here. But he couldn't stop himself from looking back one more time. Lorenzo had his arm around Amara's waist now, introducing her to a group of business associates. She was laughing at something, one hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly. She looked happy, genuinely, truly happy. And why shouldn't she be? She was free of him, free of the cold, empty mansion, free of the lonely nights waiting for a husband who never came home, free of loving a man who'd forgotten how to love her back. Lorenzo caught Dante staring. Their eyes met across the room, and slowly, deliberately, Lorenzo smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who just won the greatest victory of his life. He pulled Amara closer and kissed her temple while maintaining eye contact with Dante. The message was clear. She's mine now. Dante turned and walked out of the ballroom, his bleeding hand forgotten, his mind replaying that empty look in Amara's eyes over and over again. He'd lost her. Truly, completely lost her. And the worst part, he had nobody to blame but himself. The night Dante Moretti met Amara Bennett, he was bleeding out in the back of a stolen car. "Drive faster," he growled at his driver, pressing his hand against the bullet wound in his side. Blood seeped through his fingers, warm and sticky. The deal had gone wrong. Someone had talked, and now Dante had a bullet inside him, and 3 of his men were dead. The car screeched to a stop outside the back entrance of City General Hospital. It was past midnight. The emergency room would be quiet. Fewer questions. Dante stumbled through the doors, leaving bloody handprints on the walls. His vision was getting fuzzy around the edges. He'd lost too much blood. If he didn't get help soon, this would be his last night alive. Sir, you need to sit down." A voice cut through the darkness, closing in on him. He felt small hands grab his arm, guiding him to a bed. The lights above were too bright. Everything was spinning. "Stay with me, okay? Look at me. What's your name?" Dante forced his eyes to focus. And for a moment, despite the pain, despite the blood, despite everything, he forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful in the simplest way possible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, tired eyes that still somehow sparkled with kindness. She wore blue scrubs and a name tag that read Amara, night shift nurse. "Name," she repeated firmly. "Tell me your name so I know you're still conscious." "Dante," he managed to say. "Good, Dante. I'm Amara. I'm going to help you, but you need to stay awake. Can you do that for me?" He nodded weakly. She worked quickly, cutting away his shirt to see the wound. When his jacket fell open, she paused. He saw her eyes land on the gun tucked into his waistband. For a long moment, she didn't move. Here it comes, Dante thought. The questions, the police, the trouble. But Amara simply reached over, carefully removed the gun, and placed it in a drawer beside the bed. "We'll pretend I didn't see that," she said quietly. "Now let me save your life." 3 hours later, Dante woke up in a hospital bed with clean bandages around his torso. The bullet was out. His men had arrived and were guarding the hallway, and sitting in a chair beside his bed, fast asleep with her head resting on her hand, was Amara. She'd stayed with him, even though she knew what he was, even though she could have called the police, she'd stayed. Something shifted inside Dante that night, something he didn't understand and couldn't explain. He came back to see her the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. At first, Amara wanted nothing to do with him. "You're dangerous," she said during their third meeting when he showed up at the hospital with flowers. "I know what men like you do. I'm not stupid." "You're the smartest person I've ever met. That's why I can't stop thinking about you." "That's not enough of a reason." "Then let me give you more reasons. Have dinner with me. One dinner. If you still want me to leave you alone after that, I will, I promise." She said no that night, and the next night, and the night after that. But Dante was patient. He sent flowers to her apartment, not expensive ones that would make her uncomfortable, but simple daisies because he'd heard her tell another nurse they were her favorite. He waited outside the hospital every night just to walk her to her car, making sure she was safe. Slowly, Amara's walls began to crack. She agreed to coffee first, then dinner, then walks in the park where Dante would hold her hand and tell him things he'd never told anyone. About his father who drank too much and hit too hard, about his mother who died when he was 12, about how he'd built his empire from nothing because he swore he'd never be powerless again. "You're not what I expected," Amara told him one evening as they sat on a bench watching the sunset. "Everyone says you're a monster, but with me you're just gentle." "I make you want to be gentle. I make you want to be better." 3 months later, he asked her to marry him. They had a small wedding, just a handful of people at a little church outside the city. Amara wore a simple white dress that took Dante's breath away. When she walked down the aisle towards him, he felt tears sting his eyes for the first time since his mother's funeral. "You're making a mistake," Amara's mother, Patricia, said before the ceremony. "Men like him don't change. They only bring pain." But Amara believed in him. She believed that love could soften even the hardest hearts. Their first year of marriage was like a dream. Dante would come home every night, no matter how busy he was. He'd bring Amara flowers and hold her while they watched movies. He told her she was his peace, his calm in the storm of his violent world. "I will always protect you," he whispered to her in bed one night. "You're the only good thing I've ever had." Amara believed him. She had no way of knowing that promises made in darkness often crumble in the light. The first time Dante missed their anniversary, Amara made excuses for him. "He's building an empire," she told herself, sitting alone at a dinner table set for two. Candles burned down to nothing. Food grew cold on the plates. "He's doing this for us, for our future." Don't forget to go hit the subscribe button, like, and share your comment. She blew out the candles at midnight and went to bed alone. That was year 3 of their marriage, the year everything started to change. It happened slowly at first, so slowly that Amara didn't notice until she was already drowning. Dante started leaving earlier in the mornings. Then he started coming home later at night. Then there were days when he didn't come home at all. "Where were you?" Amara would ask, trying to keep the worry out of her voice. "Working," Dante would say, and that would be the end of it. He stopped bringing her flowers, stopped holding her hand, stopped looking at her the way he used to, like she was the most precious thing in his world. Now when he looked at her, his eyes were distant, cold, like she was a stranger living in his house. Amara tried everything to reach him. She cooked his favorite meals, she bought pretty dresses, she stayed up late waiting for him, no matter how tired she was from her own work. But nothing seemed to matter anymore. The huge mansion they shared started feeling like a prison. Amara wandered through empty rooms, her footsteps echoing off the marble floors. She had no friends here. Dante had insisted she quit her nursing job after they married. He wanted to take care of her, he said. He didn't want her working long nights at the hospital. So now she had nothing. No job, no friends, just a beautiful cage and a husband who had forgotten she existed. One night, she gathered her courage and brought up the subject she'd been thinking about for months. "Dante, I want to talk about starting a family." He was looking at his phone, barely paying attention. "What?" "A family, a baby. Don't you think it's time?" Finally, he looked up at her, but his expression wasn't soft or excited. It was annoyed. "I don't have time for this conversation, Amara. I'm in the middle of something important." "You're always in the middle of something important. When will you have time for me?" "Don't start." His voice carried a warning. "I have enough stress without you adding to it." Amara felt the words like a slap. Adding to his stress? That's what she'd become to him? She went to bed alone that night, crying into her pillow so he wouldn't hear. Then Nadia arrived. Dante introduced her at a business dinner Amara was forced to attend. Nadia was tall and striking, with sharp features and calculating eyes. She wore a red dress that showed off her figure and smiled at Dante in a way that made Amara's stomach turn. "So nice to meet you," Nadia said to Amara, her voice dripping with sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "Dante talks about you all the time." That was a lie. Amara could tell by the way her lips curled slightly when she said it. Over the following weeks, Nadia became a constant presence in their lives. She was always at the house for meetings that ran late into the night. She would laugh at Dante's jokes in a way that seemed too familiar. She would touch his arm when she talked, leaning in close like they were sharing secrets. And Dante let it. "You're imagining things," he snapped when Amara brought it up one evening. "Nadia is a business associate, nothing more." "Then why do you smell like her perfume when you come home?" Dante's face hardened. "So now you're accusing me of something? After everything I've given you, this house, this life, and you have the nerve to question me?" "I just want my husband back," Amara whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Maybe your husband is tired of coming home to a wife who does nothing but complain." He walked out, slamming the door behind him. He didn't come home that night, or the next. Amara started watching Nadia more carefully. The way she would smirk when Dante dismissed Amara's concerns, the way she would find reasons to be alone with him, the way her expensive perfume seemed to cling to Dante's clothes more and more often. But every time Amara tried to speak up, Dante turned it against her. "You're paranoid. You're controlling. You're suffocating me." The words cut deeper each time. Amara began to wonder if maybe she was the problem. Maybe she was too jealous, too needy, too much. She became a shadow in her own home, quiet, invisible, watching her marriage crumble like sand through her fingers. At night, she would lie awake staring at the ceiling while Dante slept with his back to her. She remembered the man who looked at her like she hung the moon, the man who whispered promises of forever. Where had that man gone? And the worst question of all, the one she was too afraid to answer, had he ever really existed? Or had she only seen what she wanted to see? Amara spent 3 weeks planning the perfect anniversary dinner. 7 years. That's how long she had loved Dante Moretti. Through the good times and the bad. Through the lonely nights and the cold silences. 7 years of giving everything she had to a man who had slowly stopped seeing her. But tonight would be different. Tonight she would remind him of what they once had. And tonight she would share the news that would change everything. She was pregnant. The doctor had confirmed it 2 weeks ago. Amara had cried in the examination room, overwhelmed by joy and fear in equal measure. A baby. After all this time, after all the nights she had prayed for this blessing, it was finally happening. She hadn't told Dante yet. She wanted to wait for the perfect moment, and what better moment than their 7th anniversary? Amara spent the whole day preparing. She cooked his favorite meal herself, refusing to let the household staff help. She set the dining table with candles and fresh flowers. She bought a new dress, deep blue silk that flowed around her body. She even wrapped a small gift box containing baby shoes, ready to present after dinner. By 8 o'clock, everything was ready. The food was warm, the candles were lit, soft music played in the background. Dante was supposed to be home at 7. Amara waited. 8 o'clock passed, then 9, then 10. She tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. She texted him 3 times. No response. The candles burned lower. The food grew cold. And slowly the hope in Amara's heart began to die. At midnight, she heard the front door open. Amara rushed to the hallway, ready to ask where he had been, ready to be angry, ready to fight for her marriage one more time. But she stopped dead when she saw who walked in beside him. Nadia. They were laughing about something, standing too close together. Dante's tie was loosened and his hair was messy. Nadia's lipstick was slightly smeared. "Dante!" Amara's voice came out broken. "It's our anniversary!" He blinked at her like he'd forgotten she existed. Then something like guilt flickered across his face before it hardened into annoyance. "I got caught up with work. You know how it is." "Work?" Amara looked at Nadia, who was watching the scene with a small smile playing on her lips. "Is that what you call it?" "Don't start with this again." Dante pushed past her, heading toward his study. "I'm tired." "No." The word came out stronger than Amara expected. "Not tonight. Tonight, you're going to talk to me." Dante stopped walking. Slowly, he turned around. His eyes were cold, colder than she'd ever seen them. "What exactly do you want me to say, Amara?" "I want you to tell me what's happening to us. I want you to tell me why you look at me like a stranger. I want you to tell me if you even love me anymore." The silence stretched between them like a knife. Finally, Dante spoke, and his words shattered Amara's entire world. This marriage was a mistake. Amara felt her legs go weak. "What? You heard me. We should never have gotten married. You've become a burden, Amara. All you do is complain and cling and demand things I can't give you. I'm suffocating in this relationship." "Dante, please!" Tears streamed down her face. "Whatever I did wrong, I can fix it. Just tell me what to do." "There's nothing to fix. It's over. I want a divorce." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Behind Dante, Nadia watched with satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. Amara wanted to scream. She wanted to tell him about the baby growing inside her. Maybe that would change everything. Maybe that would remind him of the love they once shared. But looking at his cold, empty face, she realized the truth. He didn't want to be reminded. He didn't want to be saved. He wanted out. And she deserved better than begging a man to love her. So she said nothing about the baby. She simply nodded, her heart breaking into a million pieces. The divorce was finalized within a week. Dante had powerful lawyers who made everything move quickly. Amara signed the papers without argument. She took nothing from him except her personal belongings. The stress destroyed her. 3 days after signing the divorce papers, Amara woke up in terrible pain. By the time she got to the hospital, it was too late. She lost the baby. Lying alone in that hospital bed, bleeding and broken, Amara finally understood what her mother tried to warn her about all those years ago. Some men aren't capable of love. Some hearts are too cold to ever truly warm. She checked out of the hospital without telling anyone what had happened. There was no point. Dante had already moved on. She'd heard Nadia had practically moved into the mansion. On her last day in the city, Amara stood outside the home she had shared with Dante for 7 years. She looked at it one last time, remembering every laugh, every tear, every broken promise. Then she turned and walked away. She didn't look back again. For the first month after the divorce, Dante felt nothing but relief. The mansion was quiet now. No more questions about where he had been, no more tearful eyes following him around every room, no more guilt eating at him every time he walked through the door. He was free. Nadia practically moved in within 2 weeks. She filled the closets with her designer clothes. She redecorated the bedroom, throwing away everything that reminded anyone of Amara. She hosted parties and invited important people, making Dante look powerful and successful. "This is how a mafia boss should live," Nadia told him one evening, her arms wrapped around his neck. "Not trapped in some boring domestic prison with a wife who couldn't understand your world." Dante believed her. He told himself he had made the right choice. But slowly, things started falling apart. First, it was small things. Business deals that should have been easy suddenly became complicated. Information was leaking from somewhere inside his organization. 3 shipments got intercepted by the police in a single month. Partners he had trusted for years started looking at him with suspicion. "Someone is talking," Felix warned him during a late-night meeting. "Someone close to you." Dante dismissed the concern. He was too powerful to be brought down by a rat. But the problems kept growing. Then there were the nights. Dante had never been a man who struggled with sleep, but now he would lie awake for hours staring at the ceiling. The bed felt too big, the room felt too cold. Something was missing, and no matter how many expensive things he bought, he couldn't fill the emptiness. Sometimes he would wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there anymore. He told himself it was nothing, just stress from work, just the pressure of running an empire. But deep down, in a place he refused to look at, Dante knew the truth. He missed her. He missed the way Amara would leave little notes in his jacket pocket. He missed her laugh, soft and warm like sunshine. He missed coming home to someone who actually cared about him, not just his money or his power. Nadia didn't look at him the way Amara used to. Nadia looked at what he could give her. Amara had looked at who he was. The difference became clearer every day. One evening, a major deal collapsed. Dante lost $3 million and the respect of several important partners. When he came home, exhausted and angry, he expected comfort. Instead, Nadia looked up from her phone with irritation. "What happened to your face? You look terrible. Please don't tell me you're going to be moody all night. The Hendersons are coming for dinner, and I need you to be charming." Dante stared at her. "I just lost millions of dollars. And you'll make it back. You always do. Now go shower and put on that gray suit I bought you. And try to smile, would you? Nobody wants to do business with a man who looks like his dog just died." Amara would have held him. Amara would have listened. Amara would have stayed up all night just to make sure he was okay. But Amara was gone, because he had thrown her away. The realization hit him like a truck. Dante started searching for her the next day. He sent his men to her old apartment, but she had moved out months ago. He contacted her old hospital, but she had quit nursing and left no forwarding information. He even drove to her mother's house, hoping Patricia would tell him where to find her daughter. The old woman opened the door and stared at him with pure hatred. "Where is she?" Dante asked. "I need to talk to her." "You have some nerve to show your face here." Patricia's voice shook with anger. "After everything you put that girl through, after you destroyed her." "I made a mistake. I need to fix it. Please, just tell me where she is." "She's somewhere you can never reach her. Somewhere she can finally heal from the damage you caused." Patricia stepped closer, her eyes burning. "Do you have any idea what you did to her? Do you have any idea what she lost because of you?" "What are you talking about? What did she lose?" Patricia opened her mouth like she wanted to say something more, but then she stopped herself, shaking her head. "It's not my place to tell you, and honestly, you don't deserve to know. Now get off my property before I call the police." The door slammed in his face. Dante spent weeks trying to find Amara. He hired private investigators, he called in favors from powerful people, but she had vanished completely, like smoke in the wind. Meanwhile, Amara was rebuilding her life 300 miles away. She had moved to a small coastal town where nobody knew her name. She got a job at a local clinic, helping people again the way she used to before Dante had changed everything. She rented a tiny apartment with white curtains and flowers on the windowsill. The healing was slow. Some nights she still cried herself to sleep. Some mornings she still reached for someone who wasn't there anymore. But slowly, day by day, she was becoming herself again. Then, one evening, a knock came at her door. Amara opened it to find a man standing there with flowers in his hand and a gentle smile on his face. Lorenzo Capelli. Before you close the door, I'm not here to cause trouble. I know who you are, I know what Dante did to you, and I think I can help you." Amara should have been afraid, but something in his eyes made her pause. "Help with what?" Amara asked carefully. Lorenzo's smile grew wider. "Help you show him exactly what he lost." Dante watched them from across the ballroom for nearly an hour. Every laugh, every touch, every whispered word between Amara and Lorenzo felt like salt being poured into an open wound. He stood in the shadows near the marble pillars, nursing a glass of whiskey that he hadn't taken a single sip from. Felix stood beside him, watching with worried eyes. "Boss, maybe we should leave. Nothing good can come from staying here." "I'm not going anywhere." Dante's voice was low and dangerous. "Not until I talk to her." "That's not a good idea." "I don't care." Dante straightened his jacket and walked across the ballroom. The crowd seemed to part before him like water. People whispered as he passed, but nobody dared to stop him. They knew who he was. They knew what he was capable of. Lorenzo saw him coming first. The smile on his rival's face grew wider, more satisfied. He didn't move away from Amara. Instead, he pulled her closer, his hand resting possessively on her hip. "Dante Moretti." Lorenzo's voice was smooth as silk. "What a pleasant surprise. I didn't think charity events were your style." "They're not." Dante's eyes moved to Amara. Up close, she was even more beautiful than he remembered. Her skin glowed with health and happiness. The emerald dress hugged her pregnant belly in a way that made his chest ache. "Hello, Amara." "Dante." Her voice was calm, polite, empty of any emotion. It was worse than anger, worse than tears. She looked at him like he was nobody. "I need to speak with you, alone." "Anything you have to say to her, you can say in front of me." Lorenzo stepped forward slightly, placing himself between Dante and Amara. "We don't keep secrets from each other. This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife." Amara's correction was soft but firm. "I'm not your wife anymore, Dante. You made sure of that." The words stung more than he expected. He deserved them, but they still hurt. "Please," Dante said, surprising himself with the desperation in his voice. "Just 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Lorenzo looked at Amara, letting her make the decision. That small gesture told him everything he needed to know. Lorenzo respected her, treated her like an equal, everything Dante had failed to do. "It's fine," Amara said quietly. "I'll speak to him." Lorenzo hesitated, then nodded. He lifted Amara's hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I'll be right over there if you need me." His eyes met Dante's with a clear warning. 5 minutes. Then he walked away, leaving Dante and Amara alone in their small corner of the ballroom. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Dante searched her face for any sign of the woman who had loved him, the woman who would have done anything for him, but that woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had survived him. "You look well," Dante finally said. "I am well. Better than I've been in years, actually." The casual gesture drew his attention to her pregnancy. His stomach turned with emotions he couldn't name. "How could you do this?" The words came out harsher than he intended. "How could you move on so quickly, with him of all people?" Something flickered in Amara's eyes. Anger. Finally, real emotion. "How could I move on? You divorced me, Dante. You threw me away like garbage and replaced me with Nadia before the ink was even dry on the papers. Did you expect me to spend the rest of my life crying over you?" "I know I did, and I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." "Then let me try to fix it another way. Come back to me, Amara. I'll do whatever you want. I'll change. I'll be better. Just give me another chance." Amara stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was tired and sad and full of disbelief. "You don't get it, do you? You can't fix this. You can't buy your way back into my life with promises you'll never keep." She stepped closer, her voice dropping low. "Lorenzo found me when I was broken. He was patient. He was kind. He treated me like I mattered, not like a decoration to be displayed when convenient. He's using you to get to me. No, Amara's voice was firm. He loves me, and I'm learning to love him back. She raised her left hand, letting the light catch the diamond ring on her finger. We're getting married next month. The baby will have a father who actually wants to be present, and I'll have a husband who sees me. Dante felt something shatter inside his chest. Amara, please. Goodbye, Dante. She turned and walked back toward Lorenzo, who immediately wrapped his arm around her. He kissed her forehead, whispered something that made her smile, and led her toward the exit. Amara didn't look back. Dante stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by hundreds of people, completely alone. He had lost her forever. The drive home from the gala was a blur. Dante sat in the back of his car, staring at nothing. Felix drove in silence, glancing at his boss in the rearview mirror every few minutes. There was nothing to say, no words that could make this better. When they arrived at the mansion, Dante walked straight to his study and poured himself a glass of whiskey, then another, but no amount of alcohol could drown the image of Amara's face, the emptiness in her eyes, the diamond ring on her finger, the baby growing inside her. Lorenzo's baby. Dante threw the glass against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, just like his life. Boss, Felix appeared in the doorway, his face serious. There's something you need to know. Not now. Yes, now. I should have told you this months ago, but I was afraid of how you'd react. Felix stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. It's about Amara, and what happened after the divorce. Dante looked up, something cold settling in his stomach. What about her? Felix took a deep breath. She was pregnant, boss. When you divorced her, she was carrying your child. The words didn't make sense at first. Dante stared at Felix, waiting for him to say he was joking, but Felix's face remained deadly serious. What did you say? Amara was pregnant with your baby. She found out a few weeks before you ended things. She was planning to tell you on your anniversary. Felix's voice was heavy with sadness. But then you came home with Nadia, and you asked for the divorce, and she never got the chance. Dante felt like someone had punched him in the chest. He couldn't breathe. The baby, he managed to say. What happened to the baby? Felix looked at the floor. She lost it, boss. A few days after signing the divorce papers, the stress was too much. She had a miscarriage. The room started spinning. Dante grabbed the edge of his desk to keep from falling. A baby. His baby. And he had killed it. Maybe not with his own hands, but with his cruelty, with his coldness, with his blindness. There's more. Felix pulled out his phone and showed Dante a series of photographs, security footage, financial records, text messages. I've been investigating the leaks in our organization, the failed deals, the intercepted shipments. It all leads back to one person. Dante looked at the evidence spreading across his desk, and slowly the truth became clear. Nadia. She had been working against him from the very beginning, feeding information to his enemies, sabotaging his business, and worst of all, deliberately destroying his marriage. She planted the perfume on your clothes, made sure Amara would smell it and get suspicious. She created situations that kept you away from home. She manipulated conversations to make you doubt your wife. Everything was calculated to push you two apart. Dante stared at the evidence. All this time, he had blamed Amara for being paranoid, for being jealous, for being too much. But Amara had been right. About everything. Where is Nadia now? Dante's voice was barely human. Gone. She cleared out her things this afternoon and disappeared. Probably realized we were getting close to the truth. It didn't matter. Dante would find her eventually. She would pay for what she did. But that wouldn't fix anything. That wouldn't bring back his baby. That wouldn't bring back Amara. 2 days later, Dante found himself standing outside Patricia Bennett's house once again. This time, when the old woman opened the door, he didn't demand anything. He didn't threaten. He simply stood there with tears streaming down his face. I know what happened, he said, his voice breaking. I know about the baby. Please, I just need to see her one more time. Not to ask her to come back, just to tell her I understand now, to tell her I'm sorry. Patricia studied him for a long moment. The hatred in her eyes softened slightly, replaced with something like pity. "She's inside," Patricia finally said. "She came to visit for a few days before the wedding. But I warn you, Dante Moretti, if you cause my daughter one more tear, I will make you regret it." Dante nodded and stepped inside. Amara was sitting in the living room, a cup of tea in her hands. She looked up when he entered, surprise flickering across her face. "What are you doing here?" Dante knelt in front of her. Actually knelt, something he had never done for anyone in his entire life. "I know about the baby," he whispered. "Our baby. I know what happened, and I know it was my fault." Amara's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, her hand moving to her belly. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but you were so cold, so distant. And then Nadia was always there, and you chose her over me, and I couldn't. I'm sorry." The words felt so small, so useless. "I'm sorry for everything, for not seeing you, for not appreciating you, for destroying the only good thing in my life." Amara wiped her eyes. "I've forgiven you a long time ago, Dante. Holding on to anger was only poisoning me. But forgiveness doesn't mean we can go back." "I know." Dante stood up slowly. "I'm not asking you to come back. I just needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost." Amara nodded. "Lorenzo is a good man. He knows everything about us, about the baby I lost. He accepted me anyway. He wants to raise this child as his own." Dante felt his heart crack one final time. "Is the baby his?" Amara hesitated. Something unreadable passed through her eyes. "Yes," she said finally. "The baby is his." Dante looked at her for a long moment, memorizing her face. Then he turned and walked out of the house, out of her life, forever. An hour after he left, Patricia sat beside her daughter. "You lied to him." Amara's hand rested on her belly. "I know. The baby is Dante's from that last night before the divorce was finalized." "I know, Mama." "And Lorenzo knows too, and he still wants to marry you." Amara nodded, tears falling freely now. "Lorenzo chose me. He chose this baby. He wants to be a father, not because of blood, but because of love." Patricia took her daughter's hand. "And Dante?" Amara looked out the window at the empty street where Dante's car had just disappeared. "Some mistakes cost everything, Mama. He had 7 years to love me right. Now he has to live with the consequences." She turned away from the window and picked up her tea. "Lorenzo is taking me to dinner tonight. I need to decide on flowers for the wedding." And just like that, Amara closed the chapter on Dante Moretti. Some love stories don't end with happily ever after. Some end with empty mansions and broken men who finally understand the price of taking someone for granted. Dante returned to his empire that night. He stood in the bedroom he had once shared with Amara, surrounded by everything money could buy. And for the first time in his life, he understood that power meant nothing when you had nobody to share it with. Somewhere across the city, Amara smiled at Lorenzo over a candlelit dinner, her hand resting on the baby that would never know its real father. Some doors, once closed, stay closed forever.